unsung heroes, if you will. If you have your Bibles, turn to Hebrews chapter 12. I don't think I've ever done this since I've been here. We looked at this part of it on Wednesday night, and I've never really done the same thing on Wednesday and Sunday, but just felt led to because I felt like it was such an important passage of Scripture. So we'll look at Hebrews chapter 12, 1 and 2. But it was a blessing yesterday to just drive up here and see my father's house looking nice. And sometimes we take advantage, or we don't give people credit for the little things they do. In the middle of August, on a Friday night, when it's 90-some degrees, and the football team, halfway almost towards the end of the game, they have a timeout, and the guys are sweating, they're thirsty. People never really pay attention to the water boy. The young guys that are out there filling water bottles full of water and running to the players and give them the water. At that timeout, the player is not really interested in what the coach has to say. They're just thirsty. They want some water. And if you ever go to a game, you hear the coaches holler for the water, 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 because they know how important that water is to those guys. And there are a lot of us play the part of water boys. No one in the stands ever look at those kids and say, wow, they're so important to the team. And they are. They're vital to the success of what they do. And all of us have a little part in God's kingdom. And everything we do is important to the Father. So part of the problem with being Christians is we have a tendency to compare ourselves to other people. And we should never do that. We are uniquely made and created and called by God. And He's called us all to run a race. And our races are individually different. And you need to understand that and realize that. If we, sometimes as Christians, we all if we're not careful, can live the Christian life on the surface. Okay? We do all the little things we think are right. We read our Bibles when we have time. We go to church. We tithe. We pray when there's a need. It's on the surface kind of a thing. But yet God wants us to be spiritual. God wants us to be deeper than that. And I know in my own life sometimes I will pray and I'll say, God, I want my life to be real before you. Don't worry about everybody else. I want to be real before you. It's really easy sometimes to live on the surface. Everybody pat you on the back, tell you how spiritual, how wonderful you are, but yet in your heart you know you're not where you need to be. And what I'm talking about today is having real fellowship, real meaning with God. That it's not just kind of a superficial thing, but that it's really, really real. That when you think of fellowship, it talks about having a oneness with God. It talks about having this commonality with God. You care about the things that God cares about. You have a common value with God. And that takes you to a deeper level with the Lord. Now, I just want to encourage you with that today. We see things in our culture today that should bother us because we know they bother God. And if things that we know Scripture speaks about and it bothers God, then if we have a commonality with God, it's going to bother us. For instance, abortion. It should bother us because it breaks the very heart of God, because God's the one who creates the baby in the womb. Now, for the woman who's had an abortion, you don't look down on her. You show love and compassion and forgiveness to her just like God does. Or the person who's homosexual, we know the Bible speaks against it. It grieves God's heart. Because the Bible says God created man and woman. He created man to marry a woman, not a man to marry a man, or a woman to marry a woman. But yet, to the homosexual, we shouldn't look down on them, hate them, despise them. We should pray for them. Invest through the grace of God, love them, and still pray for them. Like anybody else who sins, that we need to pray for them. But in the same heartbeat, we should care about that which God cares about. We care about our country. We see things happening in our country today. Things that what should burden our hearts is that they're leaving God out of everything. You start leaving God out, you'll leave me out because I walk with God, amen? So I'm just saying that we need to be very careful and aware of how we live our lives every day. It's just not on the surface. That people walk by, pat you on the back, oh, you're just a good Christian person. Well, no, I don't want to be a good Christian person. I want to be someone that's sold out for the Lord and someone that people look at and respect and admire because of my faith. Just like we're reading about this morning. Read with me real quick. And I just want to encourage you with this morning. I think, if anything, if there was, you put something on my tombstone someday, it would be that he was a I love to encourage people. It's just who I am. I always look at both sides of everything, and I always try to find the good in everything. Most people who know me drives me crazy, but that's okay. That's just who I am. And I believe the writers of the Bible were the same way in many ways, and God's that way. He tries to encourage us, even when things seem dark. He always tries to bring out the good and the light in things to help us through the darkness. It says here, therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us also lay aside every encumbrance or weight and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance, perseverance, the race that has been set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith, for whom for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and he has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. This morning I just want to focus for the next few moments on verse 1. And it says, therefore, as we look back, he's talking about all the past heroes of the faith, chapter 11. Now, excuse me, I don't know who you look up to, but all of us have someone we look up to. And who is your favorite person in the Bible? I mean, when you get to heaven, after you meet your Jesus and you meet your family that's there, who's the next person you want to go rub shoulders with? I'm sure there's someone in the Bible that's inspired you. For me, one of the first people I want to meet is King David. I've always loved King David. And then I like to meet Peter and Paul. And then in chapter 11, it speaks of Moses. I like to meet Moses. I like to shake Moses' hand. Just kind of curl up next to a fire or whatever, talk to Moses. And we're all inspired by the stories of the Bible. Well, that's what he's talking about. It's not like Paul's kind of painting a picture of this tremendous Colosseum, if you will, our stadium, and they're all full of people of the past, heroes of the past, who are there cheering for us. My mom's there, your mom's there, your dad's there, your loved ones there that went before you and taught you what you know, your grandparents, whatever the case may be, who are with the Lord Jesus. And they're cheering you on, but it's not like they're looking over and saying, because sometimes you think about that way, boy, you wouldn't do anything. And all these people watching you. I know God watches you, but you don't want everybody else watching you. You know what it is? It's an example to you and I of those who've gone before us. Those who've paved the way. Those who've paid the price. Those who've suffered, and those who've struggled, and those who have made mistakes, and those who had victories, and those who stood triumphantly, and those who failed. You see, that's an example for you and I as we run the race that God has set before us. You know, Paul was a great writer. I mean, Paul used these metaphors that all of us could identify with. Now, I've never done much farming, but there's some of you here who have. So when you read the Bible and you talk about farming, you can identify with that. You can relate to that because you've done that before. For some of you who may have been in the military, Paul wrote about being a soldier and being in the army. And you can relate to that because you've been there. He talked about marriage. We've all been married, most of us at some time, or will be. We can identify with that metaphor, those examples Paul gave us. And a lot of times Paul would use that as an athlete. Because back when Paul wrote, in the Greek culture in Rome, athletics was huge. So he wrote about those things. For many of us love athletics, whether it's car racing or football or basketball, whatever it might be, or you may even love track and field. You love to watch people run. We can identify with that. So that's what Paul is saying. These guys are examples for us. Because when I read about David, sometimes I'm like, wow, or Solomon. You know, I remember when I came here, one of the things I prayed, God, as Solomon prayed, to give him wisdom to lead your people. I pray you give me wisdom to be the pastor of victory. You see, I didn't ever know that before in the Bible. And God gave that to Solomon. I don't know how much wisdom he's given me. I'm still praying for it. You know? Well, my point is that's how we grow. That's how we grow in our faith, through those their examples. So if you go back and you read them, it talks about Abraham, when God called Abraham to go to a far land, a place that Abraham never heard of, but he trusted God and went. God may call you to do something sometimes. You're like, I have no clue what you want me to do. But because of faith, I'm going to do it. And you just, unbelievable stories. And I encourage you maybe to go back and refresh and read chapter 11 of Hebrews this week. That's what it's talking about. They inspire our heritage. You know, I see on TV all the time, people you can buy, we send in, I guess, your DNA or whatever, and they can tell you where you came from, your past heritage. I don't care to know, because I know my forefather's Abraham. My forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's Moses. It's Daniel. They're my forefathers. It's Peter and Paul, James and John. They're my forefathers. I don't care about the rest. Because they're the ones that's part of the lineages that I'm a part of. And so are you if you're a Christian. It talks about living the blessings of faith. The blessings of living by faith. That's what it's talking about. And they give us a lot, we see their lives, their examples, and their faithfulness to God. So it talks about here some metaphor of a race, a marathon. How many of you, but I've done this before, but you know, how many of you ever ran more than 2 miles? Good number of us here. Any of you ever run a mile? You run a mile. Any of you ever run half a mile? Women, have you ever run at all? Well, just trust us with what we're sharing with you today, okay? So chasing you, going to run in it. So he gives us the analogy of running a race. He's talking about a marathon. Now, when I first started being an athlete and started playing football on the high school level, at Hoggard, where if you go, there's a side road there, and there's the Brightmoor nursing or retirement home over there. That always be all woods. All the way to Independence was nothing but woods. But they had this path cut through from Hoggard High School all the way to Independence, and they called it the Loop. And it was a mile. It was there and back was 1 mile. So our football coach Ray Durham was used to say, "Okay, you guys run the Loop." Well, I just followed everybody else and ran the Loop. Halfway through, man, I was like, man, I never ran that far before. I was about to die. But I didn't stop running because no one else stopped running. Because I was a sophomore with a bunch of older guys, I started running until I saw a couple of the seniors stop. Take a break. I thought, well, they're seniors. If they can stop and take a break, so can I. You know, I did too. Got in trouble for it. Amen. You know, so I learned then to run, but then by the time I was a senior, running that loop was nothing. See, the first time I ran it, man, but where I made my mistake the first time, I just started running really hard. Just going as hard as I could run. No one told me to pace myself. Didn't know what pacing meant. So I was ahead of everybody. Oh, here I was a sophomore, I'm beating the juniors and seniors, and all of a sudden I realized they all blew past me. I'm like, you know. Someone taught me how to pace myself. So this is what Paul's saying to you and I. It is a race, but it's a marathon. It's not something you just blurt. And I've seen Christians get saved and go just boom, 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 and before long they fall on their face. You got to learn how to crawl before you can walk, and walk before you can run. You got to take the Bible and feed off the milk of the Bible before God begins to give you the meat of the Bible. You have little simple prayers. You learn how to pray. Your faith is small in the beginning, but it grows as you grow with God. See, that's what Paul is talking about. It's a marathon. And most of us here in this room have been a Christian for a long time. The majority of you probably been Christians more than 10 years. And you probably can look back and think, wow, I can look back and see where I started and where I'm at today. And yes, it is a marathon. It's a long distance run. So there's 3 things I want to give you really quick. First is the preparation. It says here that we ought to lay aside every encumbrance, and the word encumbrance means also weight, and the sin which so easily entangles us. So we got to prepare to run the race. And one of the things that we do that is that we put aside, we've got to get prepared. So I asked Coach Taylor to take 1 minute to tell you, because he's a professional, all right, he's a professional coach. What he does would tell a player to do to prepare right before a race, and how to do the day or 2 before, and then how to right before a race. So what would you do?
Well, I mean, I don't say that's it for a race, but just talk about. Think about preparation when we start practice in August. We understand they know what's about to happen. So we talked to them meeting on day 1 about your eating habits, kind of cleansing your body. You got to start eating the right stuff, the right foods. You can't eat all the junk food. About drinking the right stuff. You got to kick out the sodas and sweet tea. You got to start drinking water more frequently on a basis, because preparing yourself for daily in practice, not only the practice portion, but also the conditioning portion as well. And the same thing for someone that would be a long distance runner. They would have to prepare themselves Because you can't go out and say, I'm gonna run a marathon, I'm gonna go out there one day, and I'm gonna run 26 miles without any preparation and training before. Your body can't do that. You gotta eat properly, drink properly, train the right way to lead up to that race day before you can make it happen, just like the athlete would do in practice or in preparation for the game.
Some of y'all remember the old soda, what was the soda? It was called True-Aid. Y'all remember the old orange soda called True-Aid? I used to kill it. I used to drink the whole 6-pack before practice. When I was in the 9th grade, I'd go to practice and suffer and die, and I didn't know why. I guess I was drinking all that sugar until somebody, I figured I'm drinking a lot, it helped me, and I figured out all that sugar didn't help me, just made things worse. You gotta be prepared. You gotta be prepared to run the race. Now, if you've ever been to a sporting goods store and you look at the stuff they runners wear, oh my gosh. It's like lingerie for me. I lie to you, it's skimpy and it's thin, and I'm like, and it hugs way up. And I mean, I'm not like, I ain't wearing them to work out in. I mean, I just not, but runners wear is, back in those days when they had Olympic Games, it was called the Isthmian Games, they ran naked. Because they didn't want no clothes on, they didn't want anything to encumber them from running.
I missed that.
That's why, yeah, you missed that. I read that in the commentary. I almost said I probably shouldn't mention that, but hey, but they did. Okay, and if you look at runners, if you watch runners today in games, when they run, they wear very, very, very loose t-shirts, and their shorts are very light, and they don't wear anything. What? Because they don't want anything to encumber them as they're running. You don't see guys my size running marathons. I mean, seriously. Now, Danny and I could try run a marathon, but the smallest in here would probably outrun us. Okay? It wouldn't take very long for me.
You're talking about with clothes on, right?
Yeah, clothes on. If it was the other way, you'd probably run in the opposite direction. You'd be going the other way. But my point is, you don't see big guys or big people running marathons.
You know why?
I gotta put that. No. Let's get back to but seriously, you got to be prepared for the run. You got to be prepared for you got to put aside the things that weigh you down. Now, they not necessarily be bad things. It could be something good, but it could be your time, how you use your time. It could be your friends. Now, I had friends before that were good people, but sometimes they left a negative influence in my life, or they kept me from doing some of the things I ought to do. It's kind of like if you have some friends and they want to go hunting, but you need to be in church, then those kind of things, if it happens all the time, maybe it's the stuff you listen to, and things you watch, and things you do. I mean, now, Brother Mac would have a disagree. I love to play video games, but I have to be careful that it doesn't take my time away from the Lord. So my point is, it could be something that weighs you down, and necessarily has to be bad. But sometimes, you could be really involved in church in so much that church is taken away from your family, or taken away from providing for your family. Church is a good thing, but if you got so involved in that it was affecting your relationship with God and with others, it could be a weight into your life. So you and I need to look at our lives before the Lord as we run the race and say, God, what weighs me down? What in my life weighs me down? There's a lot of good food out there, but if I eat too much of it, it's not good for me, right? Amen? So I got to be careful in every aspect of your life and my life. We've got to be careful of things that may weigh us down. Then he talks about, and the sin that easily entangles us. Every one of us has something in our lives that we struggle with. Every Christian has a struggle in their life. Every person here that has one. And it could be greed, it could be fear, it could be tremendous worry, anxiety, it could be lust for things. It could be, Paul said there's three: lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and pride of life. But we all struggle with those things because none of us are perfect. None of us are without sin. And we have this sinful nature, this sinful flesh. Even though God put it to death at the cross, if we're not careful, it can rise itself up again. We're all tempted every day. Not one of us who hasn't been tempted this week. Sometimes it may be my language. Maybe I find myself in a tough situation and words come out that normally wouldn't come out of my mouth. Whatever the case may be, the sin that easily, entangles you. And when you get entangled in it, you can't run. Tie your feet together and try to run. It won't happen. So you got the things that weigh you down. You still can run, but you can't run effectively. Or you got the thing that entangles your feet where you can't run. And sometimes as a Christian, when I allow sin in my life, listen to me, and I allow that sin to creep in and I don't deal with it, it becomes a part of my life, then what does it do? It keeps me from running the race. Because it entangles me. And all of a sudden my focus is on the sin, not on the God who loves me and delivers me from that sin. So you got to be prepared. You got to do what you got to do to run the race. And then as you do that, you got to be a participant. You got to run. And I found this was so interesting. Have you ever seen anybody, you ever watched the Olympics or seen anybody run a long distance run? And all of a sudden, especially there's a race, and I'm not sure which one they call it, but they're out there running. You never see them until right at the end, they got 4 laps around the track. And all of a sudden, they all start coming. They start running. I never see any of them smiling while they're running. No, they're in agony. They are, man. They're doing everything they can do to make it to the finish line. And when they do, the agony is really there. Unless they win, then they smile and they're happy, but there's still a lot of pain there. In the Greek, the word agon is where we get the word agony. And that's the Greek word for race. It's how they get the word for race. It's agony. You run more than 2 miles, a mile, you feel the pain. It's not fun. I hated to run. Oh my gosh, I still do. Lisa and I used to go to the track when I was younger. 20 years ago, we'd go to the track at UNCW and we'd start running together. And after about 4 or 5 laps, I'd start walking and she'd just laughing, running and running and running. I was in agony. I was like, no, I can't do this no more. I just walk. It's painful. It's not fun to do. God never intended for us to be runners. That's why we walk. And as you get older, they tell you to walk and not run. I like that. Amen. My doctor tells me, don't you run, you walk. I wish my coach would have told me that back in the day, man. Now, coaches are different. I'm not even a coach too. Don't walk, run, don't walk, run. So as we get older, they tell us not to run and walk. You know, so I mean, whatever. So, but seriously, a race is not a passive luxury. It's not something we find joy and fun in doing. Larry they had a track meet last night in Greensboro. So I didn't think Larry'd be here today. He's one of the track coaches at track. And usually those meets get over late. And Larry loves to run. And he's one of the few people I know that runs with a smile. He does. And he's just a different sort of dude. I mean, he just runs and runs and runs and loves to run. I look at him sometimes and, man, you have crazy. Man, it's demanding, it's grueling, and it's agonizing. I've never ran without somebody demanding me to run. Never ran when it wasn't grueling. It's agonizing. If I had to go run 3 miles a day, I would dread it like nothing else. It's tough. We used to have our football fields at Clemson. They had this, our football fields were here, and there was this dike. And on the other side of the dike was Lake Hartford. The university is halfway surrounded by the beautiful Lake Hartford in South Carolina. And we used to have to run 3 miles. Get up on that dike. When you get up on that dike, the wind would hit you, and boy, you just slow up. But when they would say, okay, we've got to run the dike, I used to dread that. Oh, man. Do anything else but the dike. Well, you haven't had to do that. It requires the utmost self-discipline, determination. It does. You got to be disciplined, not stop quick. You got to be, and the one thing about the dike, they could see you from a mile away, so you couldn't stop. Couldn't stop. Sometimes you think, well, let me just stop for a minute, catch my breath. No, the coach is watching you. Coach is smart too. They know those places where you're going to stop. And when they do, I tell you, this is real quick. When I was in 9th grade, I played at Williston High School. They had a 9th grade center at Williston. And drove by there this week on Castle Street, and I was reminded that we had these 2 football coaches. Man, they were crazy. They were young guys. They were crazy. They used to make us run the whole block. From Williston all the way around where Hanover practices football and all. We used to run that in cleats. You know how hard it is to run on sidewalks in cleats? And that was a long ways to run. And I remember, there was always a tendency to stop. Because the coaches couldn't see because they're way up in the run. So I remember one day some of the guys stopped. Well, I wanted to stop, but I didn't. Kept running. This one coach we got was so crazy, he climbed up on a roof of a building over there. He could watch us run around and bust those guys who stopped. That's how crazy they were. But anyhow, I just asked this a quickie, but so most of my life has been doing something I don't enjoy doing. There's participation. God's called us all to run in a race. And listen to me. God is the one who's created the race for you. He created the race. And when God calls, once we prepare and once we begin to run the race, listen, we've got to run with perseverance. You can't quit. You can't give up. And the sad thing to say is there's really not a time and a place for you and I to stop and bend over to catch your breath. That's why it's important that you pace yourself. I mean, seriously, there's a moment you stop and everything passes you by. The moment you stop just for a moment, you think, ooh, this feels good. You catch your breath. And all of a sudden, before you know it, you don't want to run anymore. It feels better not to run than to run. And I want to challenge you today that it takes steady determination to persevere and to run with endurance. It means to keep on going, not to quit, and not to give up. And I know life's hard. It is. I'm telling you. And every one of us. I hear some of you sometimes share some of the things you go through and what you're going through. And as I look at every one of you in this room today, I'm seriously, I don't know you nowhere as well as I should, or you know me as well as you should. But I don't know what's made Danny Danny. I mean, Danny's lived a full life. Sammy's lived a full life. What's shaped to make Sammy who Sammy? There's so much more to all of us. Renee, Coach, there's things that, you know, we would know, but we'd never know unless he shared that time his testimony. He was in an accident, and it was in a coma for however long, months, weeks, whatever, weeks in a coma. That explains to you why he's the way he is. So y'all judge. But my point is, in all of our lives, and those things, as we have run the race, shaped us and made us who we are. But you wouldn't be here today, listen, if you were quitters. You wouldn't be here today if you were quitters. And sometimes it's easy to want to quit on God because sometimes we give and we give. And one thing about running, Larry runs 26 miles. I don't understand people who do that. I really don't. Because I want to see an end. Really. I want to know where I'm stopping at. I want to be able to visualize that in my mind because that allows me to, that's the goal. That allows me to keep running, knowing that there is an end coming. I don't know how you judge 26 miles. That's like running a Burgall. I mean, I don't know how you do that. But there are folks who love it. I have a good friend of mine, Steve Wark. His wife, her bucket list is to run a marathon, which is 20 plus miles in every state in America. And she's already done over half of them. It's amazing to me. And I'm like, girl, you go, that's crazy, but is that? So my point to you is simply this Sunday. Run the race that God is calling you to run. Don't try to run someone else's race. Every athlete's different. Every race car driver's different. They all have their different strengths, they all have their weaknesses. Every golfer is different. Some can hit the ball really long, some are great putters, whatever. Every quarterback is different. Some can throw the deep ball, some can't throw as far. But they all play within their abilities. God's called us all to run the race, and God's gifted you to run that race. To do something that only you can do. So don't try to be somebody else, but be yourself. But run the race. Run it with endurance. It's going to be painful. And it's not going to always be easy. And sometimes it's going to hurt. But you keep running the race that God set before you. Prepare. Read your Bible. Pray. See God's heart. See God's face. Fellowship with one another. Love one another. Encourage one another. One of the things I enjoy about Wednesday nights, we're small group now, but we're intimate. We get to know each other. Which is really getting to know people better. But you got to prepare. He's telling you. And I'll be done with the story, and we're done. The first year I went out for football in high school, I never ran. I just went out. My dad said, well, you need to do something. You better run a little bit. So I just figured I was a young guy. I was in good shape. I went out there. And after the first day, I almost didn't go back. I thought I literally was going to die. I mean, and I had, it was tough. It was really hard. I don't think I ever felt so bad. But I realized after that day, the next year when I was a junior, I started preparing. Started running. Started getting ready. Because I knew the summer was coming. Then by the time I was a senior, boy, I had it all put together. I knew what I needed for me to get prepared and get ready. My point is, that just blew by the time I was a senior. You got to be prepared. You got to read the Bible, put on the armor of God, seek God with all your heart and soul, mind, love Him with all your being. Do the things you know to do. Do them. See, we know what to do. Sometimes we just don't do it. Amen? Do what you know to do. And as you do it, I promise you, you run this race. Because someday, listen to me, you and I, hopefully you will be an example for someone else to follow. Wouldn't that be awesome? For someone to say, man, I want to be like, I want to be spiritual, I want to be like Lord. I want to be like Sam. I want to be like Linda. I want some young guy to come up to me one day and say, man, I want to be like you. I want to leave that example that someone will want to follow after me. Challenge me that this week. Let's pray. Father, thank you for your word, your grace, your mercy, and your love. And Lord, thank you that we're like, in a lot of ways, like Moses, in a lot of ways, like David and Daniel and Joseph, and Lord, like Abraham and Isaac. And Lord, because you have called us to run a race like you called them. Now, my race may not be as extensive as Moses's was. But it's still, you've called me to run a race. You've called me to serve you. You've called me to serve others. You've called each of us to be a light in the dark world. To be an encourager to those who need to be encouraged. To be a help to those who need a helping hand. To be loving to those who are loved. To be helping to those who are in need. To care about things that we need to care about. Sometimes I know my own life, I just let things pass by, and I just have an attitude that doesn't affect me, I don't care. It's not Christ-like. So help us to be prepared. Lord, help us to be participants in that which you called us to be and called us to do. And I thank you for that with all my heart. Thank you. I'm not saying this to build him up or anything, but what a blessing that Danny just took it upon himself this week, Lord, to do something that he saw needed to be done. And that's what it is about being a Christian, is doing those things, doing things that make an impact in someone else's life every day, whether it's through a good word, or an encouraging word, or a hug, or a handshake, or taking a moment to care and listen to someone who's hurting. Lord, maybe it's cutting down a brush, or making something look better than what it was before. But when we do it for your glory, it's eternal. So help us to be more eternal-minded, not being superficial or just doing things on the surface, Father, but doing things that are real and intimate and deep, and things that are in true fellowship with your calling upon our lives. So help me in my life. Help everyone else here today. And we'll praise you for that, and we'll give you the honor, and we'll give you the glory. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for forgiving us. There may be someone here today who's a Christian who's struggling with some sin in their life. Maybe they're entangled with some sin. The greatest sin that we all struggle with is unbelief. There's not a time in any of our lives, here's one, that we go through a time when we don't believe and trust maybe in your word, trust that you're going to do something in your word that you promise you're going to do, whatever it might be. The greatest struggle we all face is unbelief. But as Christians, we get through that because we do believe in you. We do know your word is true. We do know you are true. It's easy to work through that because we trust in you. Lord, I pray this morning for that person who might be seated here today who's living a life of unbelief, who doesn't believe the word of God, doesn't believe in Jesus and the cross. And Lord, I pray for them that they might understand and realize today that today is the day of salvation. There may never be another opportunity for them to be saved and be born again. I think of all the young athletes over the last couple of years who've come through the doors of the church, who sat in these chairs, and who've heard the gospel of Jesus, and who were challenged to receive you, and many did not. And Lord, they may never get that opportunity again in their life. So you may be seated here today, and this may be your only opportunity to be born again. If you don't know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, I invite you and encourage this morning to look at your life and see the sin that easily has entangled you that may send you to eternal hell, and ask Jesus to forgive you and to cleanse you and make you a new creation. The Bible says he'll do that. He'll take away the old and bring the new into your life. If that's the desire of your heart this morning, I pray you pray that prayer. Pray you invite Christ to come in to be the Savior and Lord of your life for all eternity. And Lord, we'll give you praise for that. So I pray you move upon that person's heart this morning. No one's looking around. But if that's the desire of your heart, or if you even doubt your salvation this morning, if you're here, you're not sure 100% that you're born again, you need to get up and come down and say, Rocky, pray with me. Show me I can know that I'm saved. And I don't have to go through life unbelieving. So Lord, I pray that this morning for every life here today. And I pray for Christians. And Lord, they make that commitment this morning. Keep running the race. Persevering. Not quitting, not giving up. Running it faithfully. As Paul said, I have finished the race. And someday our finish mark is heaven. Someday we'll run through that banner and we'll be there and we'll a smile on our face. I'm home. Lord, thank you for loving us. Thank you for your grace and mercy. And thank you for how you move in our lives. In Jesus' name. God bless you. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Thank you for your prayers and your encouragement. And again, thank you, sir, for your blessing. Yes.
Say real quick, just praise on last Sunday or Monday, Larry became a granddaddy.
Oh yeah, Brother Larry became a granddaddy. Yeah, so when we see him next week, remind me, I'll make a big issue of it to embarrass him. Yeah. And I really encourage you. Larry's really kind of a quiet guy, but he's really, really a blessing. He is just always has something good to say. He's just a sweet, sweet guy. So I really encourage him. And I'll end with this, and you guys pray about it, tell me when you want to do it, because I'd like for sometime here before long to have some type of fellowship after church. I mean, I just think it's important. We don't do that as often as we ought to, but I think it's important that we know ahead of time that we're just going to be together and laugh and have a little fun together. And we all love to do that with food, amen? Yeah. So we'll figure out a way of doing that, and I'll leave that up to Frankie and Wilma, Miss Billy, and however the ladies would like to do it. They want us to cater something if you want to do it that way, or we can cook, which I prefer y'all cook. And I love y'all's cooking, amen? And then the ladies thing, if we've got to get the tickets this week, the banners or posters out there on the thing, I know so many of you signed up. We're going to give it one last, I apologize, I've not reminded you of that last week, but if you want to go, all the information is out there. It's at Port City Community Church. There's a sign-up sheet, so please sign up before you leave today so we can get tickets tomorrow. I don't want to go to where we don't have any more tickets. That's a big place, but it does fill up pretty quick, amen? Any other announcements I need to make? Well, y'all stand up and y'all love on each other as we leave, and God